Hi everybody. In this video we are going to talk about how you get the code for the first time, how do you open it, how do you look at it, and what goes on with it. So first thing you do, you download the source code from our FTP site. I have here the .NET folder on my FTP site. I'm going to copy it to my local machine. Great. Next thing obviously you open the RAR file. So far so good, and you get a nice little .NET folder. Now, in it there's a bunch of files, but the first thing everyone would usually do is run the Northwind solution, which will open Visual Studio. And when it will open, we will try to run it. Tam. Here we have the Solution Explorer, where we have all of our files, and we can try and run it. But when we do that, we'll get a bunch of errors. Now this is a small project, so it's building fast and bringing those bunch of errors, but you'll get also a lot more errors when you try to build it in Visual Studio. So here's the first gotcha. When we build a solution, we plan for very, very big projects. A lot of times Magic Application has thousands, if not tens of thousands of programs, and we want to use Visual Studio in an optimized way it has some drawbacks. So the short answer is go and run the build debug batch. This is an external batch that builds the source code outside Visual Studio. You'll have to do it once when you get the application, and later when you make dramatic changes. You don't have to do it every day. But doing that builds the project outside the solution and places the results in the bin folder, where we can see the result of our build. Great. So now let's go back to Visual Studio, and we'll rebuild our code. Perfect. And we'll run it, and it runs. Yay! Great. So the thing to understand here is that we're using a method called reference to DLLs, that its biggest advantage is that it can handle huge projects, and you also don't have to load everything into Visual Studio. And the only drawback is that you have to build, and you want to build the entire solution, you build it outside of Visual Studio using this build debug batch or build release batch for a release version. Great. Next, let's talk about configuration. When we build a project, the bin folder was created, and in it we can see our exe, and we can see the INI. We use an INI file to run the application, and all of the configuration settings are being read from the INI. So when we'll double click it, the application would run and read the INI settings. The same INI exists in our code over here, and whenever we'll make any change to it and build it, that INI will get copied to the bin directory and run it. So all of the logical names, connection settings, all of the things that you're used to can be configured using this INI just like you're used to doing it, and that's a great way to start working with the solution after the migration. Now let's talk about the bin directory. The bin directory is short for, the name is short for binaries, and this is where all the code, the compiled code goes into. Okay, let's delete everything here and run the build debug, and the code gets compiled and put in that directory. Okay, now we can see that for every project that we have, ENV, Northwind, customers, there is a DLL that gets created over here. Okay, and a DLL that we can use. The current build that we used was called build debug, and as such it includes debugging information that helps get better information. Eventually, when you'll install to your end customers, you will do build release, which will build a more performance-oriented version of the code, okay, that also doesn't have those unnecessary files. So it runs faster and it has a bit less debug information, but it's the version you'd want to release to your users. Great, so let's go back to bin debug and go back to our application. Let's discuss the main elements of our project. So in Visual Studio, this is the migrated code. And let's see what we have here. Let's do this in comparison to the original Magic application. I'll just go ahead and start it. Great. So on the left we have Magic, and on the right we have Visual Studio.NET. Well, first thing you can notice that even though in Magic we had one project called Northwind, in .NET it was migrated to these 5 smaller projects. Now, of course, we don't have to do that. We can put it in a single project, but we actually did it in that way on purpose to demonstrate how a real-life large application would look like. A lot of Magic applications have hundreds and thousands and even tens of thousands of programs. Putting it all in a single project, in a single huge exe or DLL, just doesn't make sense. So the migration engine can automatically split large projects into smaller, more maintainable components based on the configuration files that you can provide to us. Here is the configuration file we used to run this migration. Let me go ahead and grab it into our view. And we can see how we said that program 3, customers, should go to the customers folder, program 4 should go to the products folder, and program 5 and onward should go to the orders folder. And we can see them over here. Show customers, print orders, show orders, and show products. Great. And if we zoom into any of these programs, let's go for show orders. This is the way it looks like in Magic. We have a parent task and 2 child tasks. And if we do the same in .NET, we can see that it has a class and 2 inner classes, one to represent each task. We can view it using this combo, or we can view it using the Visual Studio extension called Class Outline that gives us a similar view. Great, so we see how the program looks like. If we open the screen in Magic, we can see how that screen looks like. And if we open the same screen in .NET, we'll simply go to Definition and View Designer, and we can see the same screen in .NET. Another way to quickly get to the designer is to go to the class outline, right-click on the class and say, look at the view, and it will get us quickly to the designer. Great, so we could see the general structure of how a program looks like. Next thing that is important is tables. Here we have the Magic tables in the data repository. In .NET, they are migrated to classes in the base project. And we can see here the categories table became the categories class, and we can see the fields defined over here. Great. Types. In Magic we have models, 2 types of models. There's field models and there's GUI display models. Well, field models gets migrated to classes in the types namespace. We can see their names over here, customer ID, order ID. And GUI display models just become controls. So we can see them over here. Great. So this is how the code looks like immediately after the migration. This is the ballpark of what's going on. Of course, in the training, we're going to dive deeper into each and every part over here. And just one last thing, if you're looking for a program and can't find it easily, they will teach you a lot of methods in the training itself, but the map, the list of all programs, is in a class called Application Programs. When you double click on it, you will see all the programs in the application with their numbers, names, public names, and their types in .NET, so you can go and search for them. And what else do we have to show you? We can see here the controllers, as we said. We can see the screens. We can see the reports. These are the forms of the reports. Great. So this is just the first introductory into your code after the migration. Of course, the training itself will be a lot more comprehensive, and we'll go over a lot more of this code. And I look forward to seeing you in the training and see all the cool things that you'll do in .NET. Thanks for watching.